There's a small forbidden island just off the coast of Venice, a place so dreaded that even the sea seems afraid to touch its shores. They call it Poveglia. For centuries, locals have whispered that the island itself is alive, breathing with a dark energy all its own. Fishermen give its waters a wide berth, terrified of what their nets might pull from the depths. Boats that drift too close are sometimes found days later, completely empty. Their crews vanished without a trace, and they say that when the wind blows just right across the lagoon, you can hear something carried on the breeze. The faint, chilling sound of screams. Tonight, we're breaking the rules. We're going there. We're going to step onto that cursed soil and uncover the horrifying truth behind Italy's most haunted island. It all began in the 14th century, a time of unimaginable horror. The Black Death was tearing through Europe, a relentless plague that turned cities into graveyards. Venice, with its crowded canals and bustling streets, was a perfect breeding ground for the disease. As the body count rose, the city faced a grim problem: where to put the dead and the dying. Their solution was as desperate as it was cruel. They looked across the water to Poveglia. Men, women, and even small children, showing the slightest symptom, were torn from their homes. They were herded onto barges and ferried across the dark, silent waters, their pleas for mercy echoing into the night. They weren't being sent to a hospital. They were being sent to die. Poveglia became a quarantine colony, a dumping ground for human suffering. Imagine the scene. Thousands of people, abandoned on a small patch of land, left to rot among the ever-growing piles of corpses that were constantly burning. The sky above the island was perpetually black with thick, greasy smoke. The air was heavy with the gut-wrenching smell of decay and burning flesh. Those who were still strong enough to beg for a return to their homes were silenced, sometimes thrown directly into the plague pits and set ablaze. It's said that over 160,000 souls met their end on that island. The ground became so saturated with human remains that even today, the soil of Poveglia is said to be 50% human ash. If you were to walk there, locals claim your feet would crunch on the tiny, brittle fragments of bone that still litter the earth. They say the tortured ghosts of the plague victims never left. They're still there, trapped between worlds. At night, when the fog rolls in from the lagoon, they are said to rise from the ashen soil. They wander the desolate ruins, their spectral forms drifting through the crumbling buildings, eternally searching for the families who abandoned them, their silent screams absorbed by the very ground they walk on. For centuries, the island lay dormant, a festering wound on the Venetian lagoon. But the horror was far from over. In 1922, a new chapter of suffering began. The government decided to repurpose the island, building a large, imposing mental hospital on the haunted grounds. Officially, it was a place for the sick and the lost, a sanctuary for those whose minds had betrayed them. But Poveglia had other plans. The island wasn't finished feeding. Almost immediately, the patients began to report terrifying phenomena. They spoke of blood-curdling screams echoing through the sterile hallways at night, with no apparent source. They saw shadowy figures crawling across the ceilings of their rooms, their forms contorting in impossible ways. Many claimed to hear the old plague bell tower ringing at the stroke of midnight, a deep, mournful toll that chilled them to the bone. This was impossible. The bell itself had been removed decades earlier. The staff dismissed their stories as delusions, the ravings of broken minds. But the terror was real. And then came the doctor. His name is lost to history, but his legacy of cruelty endures. He was a man obsessed with finding a cure for madness, and he believed the answers lay within the human brain. He began performing brutal, experimental lobotomies on his patients, using crude, unsterilized tools, drills, hammers, and even hand-cranked chisels. He would take his victims to the bell tower, away from the prying eyes of the other staff, and conduct his grotesque work. When his patients screamed in agony, he would calmly tell the nurses it was just the island feeding on their madness. But the island doesn't just feed, it consumes. Rumor has it that the doctor himself began to go insane, haunted by the spirits of Poveglia and the ghosts of his own victims. He saw their twisted faces in his sleep, heard their agonized whispers in the quiet moments of his day. The line between doctor and patient blurred until it disappeared completely. One night, driven to the brink of madness by the very souls he had tortured, he climbed to the top of the bell tower. He leaped, but according to a nurse who witnessed the event from the ground, he didn't fall alone. She swore that as he fell, shadowy, ethereal hands emerged from the mist and pushed him, ensuring his demise. His body was later found, but locals say his spirit never left. To this day, people who dare to venture near the island claim to see a figure in a Dr. E.S. coat walking near the base of the tower, his head twisted at an impossible, unnatural angle, forever searching for his next patient. By the 1960s, the asylum was finally abandoned. The last of the staff and patients were evacuated, and the island was once again left to its ghosts. But the stories, they never stopped. The horrors only seemed to multiply. Sometime in the late 20th century, a team of paranormal explorers managed to sneak onto the island, determined to capture definitive proof of the haunting. They were filming a documentary that they believed would shock the world. It did, but not in the way they intended. The documentary never aired. The footage, however, was allegedly leaked. It showed the team exploring the decaying asylum wards. In one shot, a woman could be seen standing motionless in the background, down a long, dark hallway. She was wearing a tattered hospital gown, her mouth wide open in a silent scream. Thinking it might be a squatter or another trespasser, the team went to investigate, but the hallway was empty. They reviewed the footage, and that's when the real terror began. As they played the clip back, the same woman suddenly appeared directly behind the cameraman on the screen, her face pale and gaunt. A distorted, inhuman scream erupted from the camera's speaker before it crashed to the ground. The recording ended abruptly. The entire team vanished. No trace of them was ever found. The Italian government has since made it strictly illegal to set foot on Poveglia. Police boats patrol the surrounding waters, and any mention of the island is met with a stony silence. But the locals know, the fishermen know. They swear that when their nets snag on something heavy near the island's shore, they often pull up human bones, polished smooth by the water. And even now, brave, or perhaps foolish, tourists who take boat tours through the lagoon at night sometimes report hearing it, a faint, distant bell tolling across the water, and the whispers of the lost carried on the wind. The longer the island sits in isolation, the deeper and stranger the rumors become. Locals whisper a chilling legend that every 50 years the island demands a sacrifice. It chooses a new soul to add to its collection. Some say it claims anyone who is foolish enough to step onto its soil. Others believe it's far more specific, that it targets whoever speaks the name of the evil doctor aloud while within its shadow. The tales from the water are just as disturbing. Fishermen tell of seeing glowing lights moving beneath the surface near Poveglia's coast, like pairs of eyes staring up from the murky depths. Several divers who attempted to explore the submerged ruins around the island as crumbling foundations have never returned. And there's an even darker rumor, a belief whispered in the oldest corners of Venice. It's said that every time someone dies in the city, their spirit must first pass through Poveglia for a final judgment. As if the island itself is a gatekeeper, a collector of souls, adding them to its ghostly legion like trophies. They say, if you stand on the shore of the mainland, looking out at the island on a quiet night, and listen long enough, you'll eventually hear your own name whispered on the wind. It's a faint, tempting sound, and if you turn around, you might just see a figure standing in the shadows, pale, silent, and waiting for you. But whatever you do not answer. Don't acknowledge the whisper, because once you do, they say the island has you, and it will never, ever let you leave. If this story crawled under your skin, if you feel a chill run down your spine, or if you feel the island calling your name, then you belong here with us. Subscribe to Tales of the Dark before the next tide rolls in and carries your soul away.